And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Between the 1960s and the 1980s, BC Hydro completed 6 large hydroelectric generating projects. The first on the Peace River, Bennett Dam created a reservoir at Shrum Generating Station. When it was completed in 1968, the dam was the largest earth-filled structure ever built. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 2000.
BC Hydro's Power Smart program has been around for years, and conserving energy and saving yourself some money has always been a good idea. But now with natural gas prices skyrocketing, Pacific Northern Gas is being inundated with phone calls from people wanting to know what they can do to cut down on their gas consumption.
As a gas user myself, I can't blame them. Unfortunately, our hands are tied at this point. With the cost of gas going up the way it is.
PNG's gas prices are further complicated by the Methanex situation. The Methanex plant in Kitimat is PNG's largest customer and has been closed since July, partly because of the cost of gas. So any break it manages to work out with PNG will have to be compensated elsewhere, meaning from other industrial customers and from us. Natural gas prices in Canada have doubled in the past year, and part of the reason is that so much of our natural gas is sent directly south of the border.
Natural Resources Canada say that 52% of the gas that's produced in this country goes straight across the border. And by the year 2010, that'll be up to 68%.
So what can you do to cut down on your energy bills, gas or hydro? Home heating accounts for the 3rd largest usage of natural gas in North America, so you have to make sure you keep that heat in your home. 25% of heat loss in a home is due to leakage, so plug some of those leaks by weather stripping doors and windows.
To give you an example, 1/8 of a crack in the bottom of an exterior door is the equivalent of a 4-inch diameter hole in your wall, straight to the outside. So if you can put weather stripping around exterior doors, for example, and weather strip windows, and just seating, attic accesses to your ceiling, and just weather strip your home, you're going to be much better off.
And don't forget wall sockets. You'd be surprised how much air leaks out here. Checking your insulation is also a good idea. Add some extra insulation around basement sills and pack it into nooks and crannies in stud cavities or crawl spaces. The biggest energy users in your home are your furnace and water heater. Reducing the settings on both a little can cut consumption by up to 15%. Let's start with the furnace.
The best settings you can have would be around 20 degrees centigrade, or Celsius, I guess, and 20 degrees Celsius for your daytime, and turn it down to 17 in the evenings. In the past, they used to think that 21 and turning it down a little further, even as low as 15, was better. But they found over the years that getting the heat back to where it should be is actually using more energy.
Leach also strongly recommends yearly maintenance of your furnace.
Your furnace is a mechanical device similar to your automobile, and we have a tendency to get our cars tuned up regularly, so regular maintenance on a furnace would actually improve the efficiencies as well, especially with changing the filters, so on and so forth. It allows freer airflow.
Adding a humidifier will help reduce your costs too, since moist air feels much warmer than dry air. And installing ceiling fans can help keep that air circulating. Hot air rises, so a fan will push that hot air back down. Likewise, adjusting your hot water heater to 50 Celsius or 120 Fahrenheit can save you a substantial amount of money. If your water heater thermostat doesn't have a temperature gauge, run your kitchen hot water faucet and use a cooking thermometer to check its settings. As for your other appliances, use them wisely. Make sure washing machines and dishwashers are fully loaded before running them. Adjust your refrigerator to 3 degrees Celsius and your freezer to -18. And check Natural Resources Canada's EnerGuide stickers when buying appliances. They help you compare energy use of various appliances. Leach also recommends you check out Natural Resources Canada's website, especially its Office of Energy Efficiency at the address on your screen. Natural Resources Canada also has several free publications with plenty of energy-saving ideas.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Like we're saying with this, if you're trying to teach yourself a new language, learning through games is a solid method because not only are they appropriate for learners of all ages, but many are also wonderful for get-togethers with families and friends. Let us return to the archives with Debbie Layton-Stevens as she shares about the language program in Prince Rupert.
Using a different version of the game around the world, these grade 6 students are learning the Tsimshian language, Somalia. It's one of the many tools used by teachers of the program, which was founded in the Prince Rupert School District 4 years ago.
And we started at grade 5, and now we're offering Somalia at every school in the district from grades 5 to 11. And then next year we're going to add on grade 12. And once we finish grade 12, our plan is then to move down the grades, grade 4, right down to kindergarten.
At the elementary level, the program focuses on oral skills.
For grades 6 and 7, we do start, the students just like to read and write the language because that's what they're used to in school. The teachers try as much as possible to focus on the oral. So really focusing on listening and speaking the language.
It is quite amazing how quickly they do pick it up. Some of them are very, very quick. We got a nice compliment not too long ago about how one student was at a function and she was able to interpret for her grandmother what was being said at the function.
In spite of the fact that the program is voluntary, it has been well received by the students at all age groups.
Each year we increase. The interest is definitely there. We do have a few non-Aboriginal students taking the program, but right from the beginning we've opened it up to all students in our district.
A lot of them actually are quite excited because they've never really heard it at home. So it's something new for them to bring home and share with the rest of their family.
Unfortunately, there is a problem with the program. That is the amount of instruction time allowed at the elementary school level.
Tops, the students get Somalia twice a week, and by the time the instruction starts, it's supposed to be 45 minutes each block, but it's probably closer to 35 minutes twice a week. And so between classes sometimes, the students don't hear Somalia for 4 or 5 days. So when the teachers start again, a good chunk of the time is doing review.
The amount of instruction time does increase in the high school program, and Layton-Stevens is hoping that once the curriculum for the elementary program is fully in place, it will as well. As for the curriculum that's been developed, it recently received full marks from the Ministry of Education.
Well, last spring, the ministry approved our integrated resource package. That's the curriculum for Somalia grades 5 to 12. And we're definitely really excited about that because what that means is Somalia is now approved at the secondary level as a second language.
Brenda Stevens, DYU. Jim Sandler, Matt Locatla, D. Will Watt, Gu, Pen, D. Will Jagu, Gisbadwara, Ada, Lakibu, D. Patego.
Children and teens aren't the only ones studying Somaliac. There is a night class for adults as well. There are many within the Tsimshian Nation that have grown up not knowing their own language. The class represents a chance to recapture their roots.
I know of 2 villages down south that have lost their language. They have lost their stories. They have lost everything. And we don't want that to happen to the Somali language.
As with the school programs, the adults start to learn the language through oral methods and then progress from there.
You just make them say what we want them to say in the language, and as we go along every week, when we know they're familiar with the words, and then we write it down. Sometimes they'd like to see it written.
Brown says she enjoys teaching the language. She says it gives her a special feeling to pass it on to others.
I feel happy when I know that I was working with one helping teacher, well, two. And the first one, she never knew how to speak the language. And as we go along, this is our 4th year teaching. And now she knows how to read and write the language.
There is no denying the importance of the Somaliac program to the people of the Tsimshian Nation. It is a means of preserving a culture that is slowly eroding away with the passage of time.
About 4 years ago, there was roughly 200 that know the language. It's less than that now. The village where I come from, within the last 2 years, we have lost 16 people that know the Somali language.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Her introduction to Kitimat's local politics came when her husband Paul was elected mayor. Joanne Monaghan says she attended every council meeting, and after 2 years of watching how council worked, she decided she had something to offer. Let us return to the archives with Joanne Monaghan.
Joanne Monaghan has been involved in local politics in Kitimat for over 20 years. Unlike most, she had little or no direct political experience heading into politics. She's an American citizen and says all she knew about politics was that there were Democrats and Republicans. What prompted her direct involvement locally was work she'd done in the late 70s.
My ex-husband actually was mayor, and I became very involved in politics, really enjoyed it. And so eventually I started my own little campaign and became a councillor, and then decided I liked it a lot and wanted to be president of North Central Municipal Association, so I started working toward that.
Her climb to national prominence began about 3 years into her first term on council, when she was approached by Winnipeg's Yellowhead Highway Association.
And they asked if I would be willing to come on their board. I didn't even know what that association was, and I said, well, I'd like to come and see. And they said, well, we've never had a woman president before. We're many years old, and I went there and I found out that, yes, that's true. They never had a woman president. In fact, I don't think they even knew that women drove cars. I mean, it was that. So I went and eventually became president of that association, the first woman that they had.
Monaghan says she enjoyed that experience so much that she began looking for other organizations that she could become involved in. She quickly found one in the North Central Municipal Association.
I can't say I really targeted it, but I thought they've never had a woman as president before either, and I think that's what I'd like to do. And so I started working my way up, and just third, second, first, and then president.
She says being the first woman to become president in so many organizations has not been her prime goal, but it's something she takes pride in.
For instance, in FCM now, I, as president of UBCM, Union of BC Municipalities, which is the umbrella group over all of the municipalities in BC, you're automatically put on the board of FCM for that time. And I was looking up the head table and it was all male. And it crossed my mind, that's not right, because they're not representing everyone. in all of Canada.
Coming from a remote northern community is another hurdle that Monaghan has had to overcome in her efforts to become involved with provincial and national organizations.
It does have few barriers because they don't think that you understand the big communities, and of course we think that the big communities don't understand us. But the biggest factor is the travel, and it's getting out of the north, down to Vancouver, and then across the country.
Her responsibilities as past president of the Union of British Columbia Municipalities and as current president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities often take her from Vancouver to Newfoundland and overseas. With all that traveling, she still finds time to meet her other obligations.
Sometimes you have to juggle, and sometimes it gets just a little bit hectic, I would say, because I do have two businesses, and it wasn't too bad with the UBCM when I was president there for 2 years. FCM is a little bit more difficult because the head office is in Ottawa. And so I spend a couple of hours every morning just getting everything sorted out from head office, and then I travel about once every week, every 2 weeks.
As part of her responsibilities with these organizations, she's had the opportunity to meet with cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister is always interesting to talk to, and to sit down with them as a person, and to get to laugh with them and joke with them. I think that's seeing them as a person, and I think that's what really impresses me, that they are actually people behind those roles, real people.
The issue that has remained a priority for Monaghan is municipal power. She was allowed an unprecedented second term as president of the Union of British Columbia Municipalities to further provincial legislation granting more power to BC municipalities.
And that's actually was my main goal, to work my way up through FCM, because I wanted to take that message to everyone.
Not only is Monaghan an advocate for municipalities across the country, but she's always remained an advocate for her own community.
I know that she has worked really hard for this community, and the fact that she has held these higher offices from our community as president of the various organizations, I think has brought Kitimat to the forefront, and I know that anytime that I talk to her about when she's traveling, that she's always putting Kitimat out forward and talking about Kitimat and trying to get things for Kitimat. So from that perspective, it's been good for our community.
It's hard to imagine anything more that Joanne Monaghan could become involved with, but Monaghan says she's keeping her options open.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. Like I say, FCM now is every minute of the day is full, and I don't even think about, I'll have past president after that. And I guess during the past presidency, I'll have time to reflect where I'm going from there. Maybe it will be for the mayor, I'm not sure. Maybe there's other things I want to do as a councillor, so we'll see.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
The real estate cycle comprises of four main phases: recovery, expansion, hypersupply, and recession. This implies that historically there has never been a sustained expansion or hypersupply period without an eventual recession followed by recovery. In this final segment on Connection, we return to the archives to bring you this story on Prince Rupert real estate market.
Although it isn't exactly out of the woods yet, the real estate agents we talked to in Prince Rupert say the market has improved at least a little bit.
Well, sales are still slow compared to 1995 and 96 when our market was substantially better. We've received about 190 sales so far this year as of October 31st, based on our board statistics that we receive. So the market's gone up a little bit in some price ranges, in others it has dropped a little.
I believe that we're now approaching the bottom of a business cycle which began at its height in 1995, of October of 95, and reaching pretty close to the 5-year out of 7 bottom in that cycle. There's a natural propensity for the market to want to correct itself.
Currently, there are about 190 pieces of property listed for sale in the city. About 180 of them are residential. The average price for a residential property in the market is $124,000.
Probably about 53% of our sales have been anything around $100,000 or lower. And that market being a little bit busier makes a difference in the market. The higher price range is anything over $200,000. Only 7% of our sales so far this year have come from that price range, and consequently that's the area that's hit the most.
Over 2,000 people showed up, jamming the reserve entrance and lining Highway 16 for a glimpse of the occasion. At first, the afternoon took the feel of a parade. Baton twirlers led the way for marching bands. But then the drums began, and the totem poles were hoisted to the shoulders of band members and spectators. They emerged from the workshed where carvers have been shaping the cedar poles since January. 80 people were needed to carry the poles down the gravel road and lower them slowly onto supports for the ceremony to begin.
The new pole represents the people here today, the young ones, the new generation. The people that were bypassed for 3 or 4 generations. We're here to try and pick up what was forgotten.
It was more than 150 years ago that this ceremony was held on the Kitsum-Kalem Reserve, but they had not forgotten how to actually raise the poles. In the past, instead of this concrete base, the totem was lowered into a hole where a live slave was sacrificed. Nylon ropes weren't used 150 years ago, but manpower is still the requisite for raising a totem pole. Hundreds of spectators grabbed ropes and started both poles on a rhythmic ascent. Calling for people to go easily, Chief Cliff Bolton watched as the smaller pole easily rose from the ground. But the larger totem proved to be too heavy, and there were tense moments as people added braces and lowered the pole back down. Tradition has it that if a totem falls during the ceremony, it has to stay there until it rots. But the drum started a half hour later, and native history was made.
Keep those braces there. Keep those braces there. Hold it there. Keep the braces. Hold it.
What makes it all the nicer is that it's by the people of Kalem, for the people of Kalem.
Celebrations continued all day, with native dances and an enormous feast for all who attended, culminating a day the Kitsum-Kalem decided to share with the entire community.
It's for everyone to enjoy, and it's for everyone to see that this is the Kitsum-Kalem's place, the people of the Gillikill. Our people wanted it, and our elders wanted it, and now it's here.
David Leby, First News, Terrace.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.